Hi everybody, I'm Trin Johnson and welcome to Dust in My Eye. Today I'm going to paint a little nest of eggs on some raffia with a little baby's breath. They're sitting on a little tray. I'll pop the picture in the corner for you. And I'm going to start out with just a little bit of masking fluid. I have this Pebeo masking fluid, and I have a paintbrush, a cheap paintbrush that I have put soap on the end of. And I just want to get right now little dots of the baby's breath here and there. Just the really, really white ones. So I'm going to just get a little bit on here. Up in this part, right in this area. Maybe just a little bit of them up here. Just a smattering. Then I want to paint, when this dries, I'm going to paint the background a very light cream color, all around, probably around the eggs. And then I'll come in with some more masking fluid. But I wanted those particular pieces to be bright white. So let's pause and let this dry. I suppose I should have stated the obvious. I've already drawn this in loosely, as you can see. So now I'm going to work on the background, and I'm going to get a big fat brush. And I am going to wet the paper everywhere but the eggs and the egg dish. I have drawn this in darker than I would normally draw it in so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, it's pretty nicely damp all the way around. Now I'm going to use Shell Pink, which wish I could tell you the brand right now. I'll have it listed in the bottom under the video. It will dry lighter than what we're getting here. It has a nice pink glow to it though. I'm also going to add some titanium buff titanium. I can never remember which way it is. Just so it's a little more interesting. Okay, so now we are going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back in with a little more frisket. Okay, my block was kind of coming apart, so I went ahead and taped around the edges to hold it together a little more. But I'm ready to do some more frisket work. So I put more soap on my brush, and I am just trying to hit the highlights. I think that's good for the really light stuff. I say that, and then I go find someplace else that I squint and see. And so we're going to let this dry also, and then I'll be back. Okay, now it's pretty dry enough. We're going to work on the eggs next. And I have a few mixes ready to go. And I think I will work wet on dry. I'm going to start with this egg right here, and he's got a little blue tint to him. So I've got a really pale blue mixture. Now remember, it's going to dry lighter than what you see right now, because that's how watercolor works. Now, while it's wet, I want to get just a little bit of the speckling, just a little bit of it wet on wet. So I'm just dabbing my brush. In a mixture of neutral gray and indigo. See how I've got the end kind of mushed? Don't normally use this brush that way, but I just want a little bit of the speckly stuff starting. And then I'm going to let that dry. Okay. And then we're going to go to the next egg, which is, I'm going to go to the middle one, and that is very similar to that egg, maybe slightly less blue. You know what, though? It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to be comparing it to the photograph, and I'm not going for photorealism, so I'm going for interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and paint that one in. And I'm going to do just a little bit. Oops, didn't quite get it all. Just a little dropping in on this one. Just what I don't want, and I just did it. I don't really want it going from one egg to the other, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right, now let's see. This egg in the back looks like it has just a little pink in it too. So let's get a little blue and a little pink going on. I'm trying to get that without getting purple, because that's not really what I want. Maybe not exactly what's in the photo, but it's different than the other eggs, and that's kind of neat. I might add a touch of that to that. A little cohesiveness in there, and yet they're different. A little green, a little brown. This one's got a really big black spot on it, so we'll get that later. And this guy's really brown. So we're going to get that one in mostly with this color. A little bit of that in. It's like the odd egg out. Get some of our drops. Okay, let's see if we can get a little lifting going on. Just a little hint. I can pick that up, but it's just got a little bit of a highlight now. If I feel it's necessary, at the end I can always come in with a little gouache and really lighten that up. close enough. There. So I have a mix of a burnt umber and raw sienna. I probably should have put a little frisket along that edge to keep that spot of highlight, but I didn't, and I'm not going to do it now. I'm just going to try and see for if I can avoid it. Okay, so while that's drying, I'm going to just go up here and I'm going to paint in my stems. Now I think our eggs are pretty dry and the background is pretty dry around the eggs. So we're going to work on the nest. We might do this in a couple layers. I'm just going to mix a nice creamy nest color. And I'm just going to get some paint down around, right around the eggs. Let that kind of I like the way it comes down the page, so it will encourage that a little bit. Further out I get, the paler it gets. Now, I'll let that dry and think about if we want to do any more masking. It might be nice to do just another swath of it when this dries, and that will get us a medium kind of color that will hold, and then we can do the detail work. In the meantime, let's get our spots on. A few big spots, a little bit over here, it's dark in the corner here. Just using the side of the brush to get some of the smaller, lighter, speckly stuff in. Now, I would like to do a little speckling, like spatter. So we're going to try covering with my paper towels. One more, it looks like. And then I want to add a little brown to our mix. Because there's some brown tones in there. It goes a little bit outside my eggs. It's not a big deal. Okay, let's lift our paper towels and get back in here and get this edge. Okay, I'm going to get some soap on my brush. And I want some in the mid-range. Some of the, not as bright as the first batch was, because these are going over this darkened painted surface. So they are going to retain the color that is underneath them. All right, I see I have some droplets. That's not a problem. And once they're down there, you really can't move them. So just let them stay. Okay, and you know the drill. Once more, we're going to let these dry and then we'll be back. Well, while it was drying, I had a thought for my eggs, and I got this sea sponge. And I am going to use it to get some random patterns on my eggs. So they're not so particular. Kind of like that. So obviously you don't have to do this part. You can just keep it the way we did it with a brush. But it makes a nice texture. Gives it a little more random feeling, which I like. In the meantime, let's see. We're just going to go crazy on some raffia. This is raw sienna. I'm just mimicking some of the lighter things I did because with the frisket, so that the frisket will really pop away from it. It'll have something to contrast with directly. If I just leave it the way it was, it wouldn't show up very well. I'm using a little bit of yellow ochre. It's very similar to raw sienna. You could use both. You could use just one or the other. I just want to make sure I've got some medium tones down here, enough for my light tones to pop. I'm going to make it a little darker now, and we're going to get those dark spots in. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them seem to be around the eggs, around the little metal dish that the eggs are sitting on, which makes sense because that's where the shadow would be. Now, what I'd like to do is if you look at the photograph, you can see that there is shadow under the baby's breath and kind of around where the flowers are, and because we put these down the frisket, but you're not going to really see those flowers on that pale background without some contrast. And there's those nice shadow area I'm just going to hint at. Now, if you can see, there's some shadows underneath here too. So I think this is a good opportunity to get those in too. And again, we just want just some shadow so that they aren't just all floating out there in the breeze. I'm not being real particular about where the light is coming from and which way the shadow would be, because it's kind of every which way in this photo. So now the question is, can I do that line yet? Okay. Now I think we're going to let it dry and then take off the frisket and see what we've got. I have a few edges up there, but that's okay. I don't mind what's going on up there. So let's just let this dry absolutely completely. You do not want to try and take frisket off if it's damp or slightly damp or anything. So we're going to step away and come back, and then we might add some contrast and add some shadows to make things pop. Okay, everything is dry, and I'm going to use my rubber cement eraser thing to get the frisket off. Okay, I'm all straightened around again. I am going to just do a little bit of detail because I think it could use a little more contrast, but we're almost there. Don't really have a rhyme or a reason as to how I'm doing this. Using some of the already given negative spaces. Just trying to get where there's a big white area possibly, or where it could benefit from some more interest going on, some more definition. I know that in my photo reference, some of the ones that I'm making darker are actually lighter, but at this point, I'm more interested in what looks good on my paper and not copying what is in the photographs. So now let's get just a little more dark spots here and there on our baby's breath. The problem is, and you have to pay attention, is if you've already decided one is over a different one, then you got to be consistent. I think, anyway. Place else where there's a big gap of white. But right here on this guy, let's bring him around. And this guy over here is kind of bothering me. There's nothing saying it has to be the dark brown either. You could definitely go in with any one of those colors if you think something needs some separating like that. I like that better. If you don't like how big your mark ended up or what have you. I'm going to call it done. I thought eggs was a timely subject matter for April, and I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you'll try it yourself because it's kind of fun. And even now I sit here and I say, oh, it needs this, it needs that. So we'll see. But I appreciate your watching. I appreciate all of my subscribers. And if you aren't a subscriber, I wish you would consider it. It really helps me grow my channel. And if you want to be notified of future videos, hit the cute little bell. And it helps if you hit the like button. YouTube likes that. No pun intended. And until next time, please check out my Etsy shop where I have prints of my artwork and some originals and my cute little monsters for sale. Thanks for watching.